This video will help you shift timelines faster than you think. And no, this is not about forcing change or chasing some dramatic breakthrough. You are not stuck. You are stabilized in a version of life that matches who you have been practicing internally. That is the part most people never hear. When you feel delayed or repeating the same patterns, it is not proof that manifestation is failing. It is proof that it is working with precision. Reality is responding to who you are being when no one is watching. You do not move into a new timeline because you want it badly. You move when your identity can no longer fit the current one. Until that happens, life has no reason to rearrange itself. Most people imagine timeline shifts as some cosmic event. They picture a portal opening and pulling them into a better version of life. But the shift is subtle. It is internal. It is emotional. All possible versions of your life exist as probabilities. Calmer versions, wealthier versions, more confident versions. They are not fantasy, they are potential states. The real question is not whether they exist, the question is whether you are emotionally compatible with them. You can think about abundance, but still rehearse scarcity. You can talk about love, but still stabilize fear. You can want expansion, but still identify with limitation. The field does not respond to what you wish, it responds to what you consistently are. Your nervous system prefers what is familiar. Familiarity feels safe even when it hurts. That is why change feels uncomfortable. Not because it is wrong, but because unfamiliar identity feels like a threat. So you stay in the same patterns. You call it failure, but it is coherence. You have mastered being the current version of you, and life mirrors that mastery perfectly. Here is the empowering part. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are maintaining a pattern. Shifting timelines is not about escape. It is about destabilizing the old identity long enough for a new one to feel natural. The leap is not external. It is internal redefinition. Ask yourself this: if your life changed overnight, would your body feel safe inside it? Or would you search for something to fix or doubt? That answer reveals which timeline you are anchored to. The future you want already exists as potential. Potential collapses where stability lives. You are not behind. You are not unlucky. You are coherent with who you have practiced being. And that is good news, because coherence can change. The shift begins when you become emotionally incompatible with the old version of you, when you can no longer sustain the old reactions, when the old patterns feel heavy instead of automatic. That is when timelines start to destabilize. That is when everything changes. Consciousness collapses possibility into experience. That means your reality is selected, not assigned. But selection is driven by identity, not surface thoughts. You can think positive, but still identify with struggle. And identity always wins. Desire is not strong enough to override identity. Think of identity as a frequency. All versions of your life exist like channels. You do not travel to them, you tune into them. And tuning is not done with words, it is done with emotional stability. If your baseline is anxious, you tune into an anxious timeline. If your baseline becomes grounded, you tune into a different one. Repeated emotional states shape neural pathways. Neural pathways shape behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. Outcomes shape identity. It's a loop. When you feel stuck, you are saying, "My system is trained to reproduce this version of life." But you can retrain it. Changing the observer changes the collapse, not by wishing, by becoming. Sometimes shifts feel sudden. Externally, it looks like luck. Internally, it was coherence building quietly. There comes a moment when the old identity feels too tight. Reacting the old way feels unnatural. That discomfort is not failure, it is destabilization. And destabilization is the beginning of movement. Most people panic here. They try to return to the familiar. But if you stay present in that instability without clinging to the old self, something changes. The observer shifts, and when the observer shifts, collapse follows. You do not push into a new timeline. You stop reinforcing the old one. The hardest part of shifting timelines is not accessing a new possibility. It is stopping the unconscious reinforcement of the current one. Every small reaction matters. The sigh when something delays, the tension when you see someone ahead, the mental rehearsal of worst-case outcomes. These micro moments stabilize identity, and identity stabilizes timelines. People visualize and affirm, but their emotional baseline never changes. Baseline collapses reality. Personality creates personal reality. Personality is a set of memorized emotional responses. If your system is shaped by stress or control, that becomes the dominant signal. The field mirrors that. You do not get what you want, you get what you embody. There is also attachment to the old identity. Even painful patterns feel safe because they are familiar. When a new opportunity appears, the body contracts. That contraction collapses the old timeline again. This is physics, not punishment. If you hold two frequencies, the dominant one wins. And dominance is repetition, not intensity. That is why sustained shifts are rare. People want to add a new future without dissolving the old self. But timeline shifts are subtractive. You subtract emotional patterns, and subtraction feels like loss. Growth often feels like grief. When you stop reacting the old way, it feels strange. When you stop bracing for disappointment, it feels exposed. When you stop controlling, it feels risky. But that is the doorway. The shift happens when the old identity cannot sustain itself, when worrying feels unnecessary, when contraction feels forced. That is detachment, and detachment destabilizes probability. You do not explode into a new life. You quietly stop being compatible with the old one. Incompatibility builds until collapse becomes inevitable. So how do you create that incompatibility intentionally? Not by forcing. Forcing is the old identity. The shift must be embodied. There is already a version of you that belongs to the next timeline. That version reacts differently to uncertainty. That version does not need proof to relax. That version does not rehearse loss. That is the only difference. Timeline shifts are identity stabilizations. When your nervous system stops cooperating with the old script, the script dissolves. The leap feels quiet. You stop over-explaining. You stop monitoring outcomes. You stop negotiating with fear, not by discipline, but because it feels unnecessary. Most people live in contradiction. They want abundance, but stabilize vigilance. They want love, but rehearse protection. They want freedom, but embody control. The field responds to the most stable signal. The real leap is coherence between identity and desire. When your desired reality feels normal, collapse accelerates. When expansion feels familiar, probability reorganizes. You do not force the next timeline. You become steady enough for it. Ask yourself honestly, if your next life required emotional stability, would you qualify? If it required releasing the need to prove, would you feel lost? These are diagnostic questions. The field responds to identity stability. Choosing your next timeline is choosing who you stabilize. The moment you emotionally disengage from the old identity, reorganization begins. It does not require force, it requires consistency. Shifting timelines is mechanical. It begins with interrupting reinforcement.
Every reality is stabilized through repetition, thought, emotion, reaction. If you want a new probability, rehearse a different identity until it becomes more stable. Do not chase excitement. Rehearse calm certainty. Imagine your future while your body is relaxed. Teach your biology that expansion is safe. That destabilizes the old timeline. Observe your reactions. When something delays, do you tighten? Pause, slow your breath, lengthen your exhale. In that moment, you interrupt collapse. You select a different probability. Detachment weakens the old identity. Many experience an in-between phase. The old reality feels unstable. The new one is not fully formed. That is superposition. Do not rush it. Panic returns you to the old frequency. Patience stabilizes the new one. Each night ask, how would I interpret today if I were already in my desired timeline? Interpretation changes the observer. Carry that interpretation into tomorrow. Over time, the body adapts. Stress becomes manageable. Expansion feels natural. The system stops bracing, and life reorganizes quietly.
There is a tipping point where the old reactions feel foreign and the new baseline feels normal. Collapse accelerates. You will not notice the exact jump. You will simply realize you are no longer where you used to be, and it will feel normal. That is how you know it is real. The shift is often anticlimactic. No fireworks, just a quiet certainty. You breathe differently. You interpret differently, and reality mirrors that stability. Many people sabotage this moment by checking for proof. They reintroduce doubt. They test reality. That reactivates the old identity. Once the shift begins, it does not need monitoring. It needs non-interference. Patience is intelligent restraint. Protect the new stability. Do not overanalyze. Live from it. Conversations change, timing aligns, opportunities appear without force, not because the universe changed, because you stopped contradicting yourself. The leap is the stabilization that precedes the external change. Once identity stabilizes, collapse becomes inevitable. The field reflects who you are being. You are not moving forward in time. You are allowing the future that matches your identity to crystallize around you. If you are serious about this work, you need structured identity training, not just inspiration. Dissolving old emotional architecture and stabilizing a new one is a process. Daily integration matters. The shift must be embodied, not theoretical. You are never stuck. You are coherent. And once you become coherent with something greater, reality follows. This video will help you shift timelines faster than you think because it reminds you of one simple truth. Your life is not waiting to change. It is waiting for you to become incompatible with who you used to be. When that happens, change is not effort, it is inevitable.